have it. You're a former Marine. How would you and your fellow troops in the day, how would you feel if you had to be deployed to a Los Angeles area, any big city in this country, to sort of quell unrest?
I mean, I know the Marines that are there, that are deployed, they want to do their duty, they want to do right, and they want to defend the Constitution. But I think we all recognize, every veteran I've talked to recognizes that this could end horrifically. The Marines from 2-7, who are the Marine unit that's been sent there, they're an infantry unit, which means they're trained to close with and destroy the enemy. They've been training to do this for many months, and the training that they've just had on how to deal with civilians, maybe they've gotten in the past 24 to 48 hours, if that.
All right. So you may have heard me speaking with our White House correspondent earlier. They're going to be issued some sort of a card by which you're laughing. What would that card potentially say? Because I guess there's a logistical role. When I think of that, I think, what are you going to be driving them around from place to place? What do you think this card entails?
So I believe that the card that they received indicates what's called the standing rules on the use of force, which is slightly different than the rules of engagement. It applies to how soldiers would conduct escalation of force engagement with civilians. Unfortunately, a card, it runs contrary to how they've been trained for this many months, since boot camp even. So when, things happen, they're going to react as they've been trained. And in 1992, when the Insurrection Act was invoked by George H.W. Bush, Marines actually opened fire on a house, unleashing hundreds of rounds and nearly killing everyone inside. Thankfully, nobody was actually hurt, just because the police said, "Cover me." Because cover me to a police officer means something entirely different than cover me to a Marine.
Are you referencing the Rodney King riots in Los Angeles? Los Angeles again. What is it specific to Los Angeles? Do you have any inclination what, not only that, I lived in LA at the time too, right? And it was pretty horrific. I remember the fires there. I remember ash coming down from the sky because of tires being burned and the like. But this administration, what is it about Los Angeles that you think gets under President Trump's skin?
I think he hates that it's a multicultural city. It's one of our great cities. And, having grown up there, like you said, it's a wonderful place where there's a lot of activism and a lot of protests and a lot of engagement by the citizenry. And it's a hugely diverse city. And I think it's something that scares him because it's a vision of America that he's entirely opposed to.
Here's something that scares you, by my understanding, reading an article that you wrote, or an op-ed rather, in Slate. You talk about quoting what Donald Trump had said back in 2020 when he was speaking with the chairman of the Joint Chiefs. I believe this is in regard to some Black Lives Matter protests that were underway. He said, "Can't you just shoot them? Just shoot them in the leg or something?" Expand on why you were fearful at that point hearing that and what you think that portends for now.
I think what a lot of civilians don't understand is the degree to which it's very, very hard to not obey an order when you're in the military. So everyone that's serving has an obligation to disobey unlawful orders. So if President Trump orders them to shoot someone, they should say no. But there's no real mechanisms in place for them to do that. And the pressure in those moments is intense. And so I think our fear is that if Trump issues an unlawful order like that to kill an American civilian or to fire on an American civilian crowd, there's going to be nothing to stop them from that happening.
We've heard reports of journalists and others on the ground being shot with rubber bullets, if you will, although I did read about one reporter, I believe a photographer, who his leg got shredded. Talk about the rubber bullet versus a live bullet. First of all, would Marines be outfitted with rubber bullets?
So a rubber bullet can blind people, can kill people. Even though they are not metal bullets, they can be lethal. They're often referred to as less lethal. The Marines who are going to be deployed will very likely be deployed with, I would assume, normal bullets, the regular 5.56 round that M16s and other weapons they carry fire. In addition, the Associated Press has reported that they're carrying their standard weapons, which would include machine guns, which can fire up to hundreds of rounds per minute. And with police kettling tactics where they kind of condense protesters, if Marines with machine guns were to open fire on that, you could have an enormous mass casualty incident that would surpass pretty much anything that America's ever seen.